my name is Naman Patel and I'm going to be going over the bar chart section of this Tableau lecture. Before we dive into getting our hands dirty and actually making bar charts on Tableau, I want to go over a couple quick slides. The main family of bar charts we're going to be covering are horizontal bars, stacked bars, and side-by-side bars. We'll see how we can easily switch between the three by adding or formatting our existing data measures or adding or removing certain conditions. Just a quick thing before moving on to the fourth type of graph we're going to cover. If you put the qualitative variable that you have, for example, if it's category, in the column section of the Tableau interface, this will help create vertical bars for you. And if you put in the rows section, you'll create horizontal bars. And obviously your quantitative variable, such as the sum of profit, would be in the other respective one that you haven't used for the qualitative one. Great, so moving on, now we have the fourth type of graph that we'll be going over and making in Tableau, which is circle view. So at first glance, this graph doesn't look a lot related to bar chart, right? And again, don't worry if it doesn't make sense to you on the left right now. We'll construct it together and it'll make a lot more sense after. But the reason we chose to include it with bar charts is that it also represents categorical numerical data. And furthermore, the circles serve a similar function as in stacked bars to show us how one thing is broken up into different pieces. So yeah. So enough talking, let's go ahead and actually start doing things in Tableau now. So when you guys open up Tableau Desktop, this is the first thing that'll greet you, this page. And on this left-hand side is sort of all the ways for you to import your data in. So just for simplicity's sake, and so you guys can recreate the graphs I'm making right now later on your own time, I'm going to use the first underneath the Save Data Sources, which is Sample Superstore. So I go ahead and click that, and now I get this, which is just basically my workspace. On the left, I have all my data. On the right, I have my actual, where my graph will be created. So let's just get right into it. So let me go ahead and put ship mode, which is a qualitative variable, in columns. And then I'll go ahead and put profit in rows. Wow, so immediately I already have a working bar chart. So this one is with vertical bars. Let me just show you real quick what it would look like the other way around if I just had this up here and this up here. Now you see that I have my horizontal bars, which I was talking about earlier, by just switching the rows and columns. But yeah, I personally prefer to use the vertical bars, so I'm going to go ahead and change it back. But you guys know how to do either way now, so whichever way you're more comfortable with. So great, I'm over here now. I have this working bar chart. Now let me go into some of the formatting things with bar charts. If I were to highlight where it says Sheet 1, I can pretty much name this anything I want. On the top, you guys see that there's another toolbar within this pop-up to select font size, color, and what else. Great, so we fixed title. We know how to do that. Now let me go ahead and highlight this profit axis over here, which causes this pop-up to come. Over here, I can control things such as the range. Let me change it to fixed, for example, and then I'll change it from 0 to 350,000. And I'll change this name to sum of profits like so, and just go ahead and close it. It saves automatically, no need to press any OK button or anything. And now we see that, yeah, the range has been extended up to 350,000. My axis is a new title, and obviously there's no practical reason for doing that, but in this case, but I just want to show you guys how it works if you change it. I'm going to go back and change it to automatic. But yeah, so that's how we do that. And now while we're on the topic of this axis, you guys should notice this small little icon that comes up above it. If I were to press it once, it sorts everything in descending order for me, where I have the most profit, which was for standard class on the leftmost side, and the least, which was for same day, on the rightmost side. If I press it one more time, it just does the opposite. It sorts ascending instead. If I press it one more time, it just gives me back the original thing I had. Okay, great. So we went over that. Now another cool thing I want to show you is, let's say you have a bar chart created, then you decide you only want, for example, 2 of these bars, or maybe you want to take one out. So what you do for that is you go ahead and hover over the particular categorical variable. So for example, in this case, I'm hovering over standard class. You go ahead and click it, and now you see this pop-up come that says keep only or exclude. So if I press exclude, it just takes it out of it, right? Let me bring it back now. And let's say I were to do keep only. Then I see that the only bar that's remaining is a standard class one. So just a pretty easy functionality, but it's something that a lot of people don't know. It will save a lot of time if you already have a bar chart created and you just want to take a couple pieces from it. Okay, great. Now, one last thing before moving into stacked bars is I want to show you guys how we get that label up here that you see in certain bars that show you basically how much is encapsulated within the bar. So for that, all we do is you see this label section underneath marks, this marks box. We go ahead and click that. And then there's the first button that will come on the top most is show mark labels. You go ahead and just select that. Now you see that I have my values right on top of my bars. So just some pretty cool things to make your graphs look even more professional and even more organized. And in this particular case, it actually lets us see the exact value because these are huge divisions in the range. Sort of hard to eyeball that. Okay, great. So that's basically how we create our basic horizontal bar chart or vertical bar chart. Now I'm going to go ahead and create a new sheet, which is done by this button down here. And I'm going to go ahead and do my stacked bars. So stacked bars are basically just bar charts, which are further, each bar is broken up by some distribution that shows us what makes up each of the bar pieces. So to show this, let me choose year and sales as my relevant variables this time around. So I'm going to go ahead and drag order date up here. I'm going to put sales over here. Now, don't worry that it automatically created a line chart for me. The only reason it did that is because it saw year and recognized it as a sort of like a time variable and automatically put it into a line graph to show change over time. If you want to change that, just go over to marks, press this drop down, and we just press bar. So now we have it in the way that we wanted as a bar chart. Okay, great. So now we have this working bar chart. Let me go ahead and again just change this real quick to, let's say, bar chart number 2. Let's go ahead and apply it. Okay, great. So now, if I wanted to divide these bars up into, let's say by region, then I'd go ahead and find my region attribute over here, which is right here in dimensions, and then I drag it over to this marks thing over here, and I put it in color, just like so. And we see that it has been split up by the regions. If you hover over any piece, you can see what that region represents, what that piece of the bar represents, as well as the value within it. And over here we have our legend, so to speak, which lets us know which part of each, like which color each region refers to. If you were to press down on this actually and hit format legends, this pretty cool thing comes up where you can change the font, alignment of the title, as well as the body if you wanted to change it from the defaults. I'm not going to do that because it's not super important, but just wanted to let you guys know where it is if you guys want to do that in the future. Okay, great. So we have this stacked bar working chart, right? Now, I want to show you guys how to get the labels on top of the bars again, because the classic method that we use will not work. So if I were to press label again and hit show mark labels, what you see is it actually shows up for each piece. Well, maybe that's something that you want too. Well, in that case, this is how you would do it. But if you just want the one on top of the bar, then there's another way to do that. First, let me get rid of this one. So I'll go ahead and get rid of those labels. And this is a little complicated, so follow along. What I'm going to do first is that I'm going to go ahead and click my analytics tab over here. Then I'm going to go down to reference line. I'm going to press that and drag it over. And as I start dragging it over, 3 options appear: table, pane, or cell. So I'm going to go ahead and do cell, which is what we want to do if you want to ultimately get the labels on top. Now we have to do some manipulation here to get rid of the actual line and leave us with just the values. So over here we have sum. Over here I changed that to sum because I don't want the average. I want the entire bar sum. So I changed that to sum. Another thing that I do is I change line to none because I don't actually want to see my line itself. And the last thing I do is I change my label to value. Then I press OK, and voila, we have our conglomerated bar totals on the top of each, rather than using our show mark labels method, which would give us for each singular piece. Okay, great. So that's how we make stacked bars and how we can show the totals of each stacked bar if we don't want to see it in the piece. But we also saw how we can do it with the pieces. Okay, great. So moving on, let's go ahead and do side-by-side bars now. which is actually pretty intuitive. What we do here is that the only difference is that we'll have two attributes in one of these things, because obviously any side-by-side bar graph is comparing two things for each like broader thing, if that makes sense. Let's see it real quick in action. So what I'm gonna put is I'm gonna go ahead and do state for this one up here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose my two quantitative variables to be profit and quantity. So I'll go ahead and put profit over here. And we have quantity right here. Okay, great. So now you see I have two different bar charts. So the only thing I need to do to put these together is click this show me up here, and then I'll select this icon, which is for side-by-side bars. I go ahead and press it, and now you see how I have created a side-by-side graph for all my states on the top, and then on the bottom I have profit and quantity for each of those states, and the different color bars that show me what each of them refer to. Profit being blue and quantity being orange, and again I have this legend on the right to show me that. Now again, keep in mind that although I'm not going over all the aesthetic things again, they all apply to this as well. So if I was to select this, I could go ahead and name this bar chart 3, and then we still have the option to change this this range if we want, change this name, anything like that. And another reason why I picked this particular example is to also show you how negative values are portrayed in Tableau, and how you can also have negative values as part of your range if it's relevant. So for example, in profit, it was relevant because although quantity can't be less than 0, profit definitely can. So this sort of helps us see that as well. Yeah. Okay, great. So that all being said, and having gone a good review of bar charts, like the conceptual review of bar charts, as well as a new introduction on how to model them in Tableau, let's go ahead and move to circle views. So I'll open up a new sheet for that. So for circle views, let me start by just putting, like I said, it's still categorical and numerical data, so that thing still applies. So let me go ahead and put subcategory as my column, and then I'll go ahead and put sales in my row section. So, okay, I have this, so it defaults to a bar chart. Okay, cool. So now if I want to change this, all I do is I go up to my show me, and I'll go ahead and select circle views. Now, do you guys see a certain issue that just happened when I did that? What happened was that now it created, I'm not going to count all of those, but an arbitrary number, not an arbitrary, but the same number of my subcategories. It created that many circles. But what I was actually looking for is I wanted to put all my subcategories on the supposed x-axis and have one circle for each of them on this sales range. So in order to do that, what I do is when I press circle view, it automatically put my subcategory down here into marks. So I just grab this and go ahead and put it back up here in columns. And now I get the circle view that I was looking for, where on the bottom over here I have each category, and over here I have my sales with a circle representing each of them. And of course you can hover over it to see information about it. Now I want to go over how to do the different colored circles that we did, that we saw in the slides earlier, and let me use region for that once again because it's a great way to split it up. Gives me 4 things, so I'll drag it over to color again like we did, and voila, you see that according to the legend on the right, we have our we have broken up the sales in accessories by region, and hovering over each of them can basically give you some insight onto what the information for that particular dot is. Now one last thing I want to go over about circle views is the ability to change the shape and color of your labels. So for example, let's say I select shape. You see all these things, these are all operands. Like they can be X's, they can be an asterisk, it can be down arrow, anything like that. So just whatever you guys really want. And another thing I wanted to go over is, let me remove region real quick from this thing. So I just get my regular triangles again. And now I'm going to show you that if you guys wanted to, instead of color, maybe do it by shape, that works for this particular thing. Because in bar chart, if we were to split our, like I call it the division dimension, basically the dimension that you want to divide your existing data by. If we were to do it with shape in bar charts, it doesn't really make sense because there's no shape. But in this case, if I drag region over to shape, I get different shapes for each region. And again, my legend came up on the right. So that's just a detail about circle views that you may or may not find helpful in the future. But yeah, so that was basically a review from bar chart number one, and then we have our stacked bars, and then we have our side by side bars, and we have our circle views. I hope you guys learned something from this and enjoyed this lecture. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me at namanpatel@berkeley.edu, and thank you for your time.